You're listening to episode 13 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. Today, we're talking with Steph Gaudreau all about taking aligned action in your health, your life, and in your business. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm a registered dietitian and coach trained in functional medicine with a passion for helping women just like you ditch perfectionism and use food, fitness, and self-care to fuel your bigger God-given purpose. I believe that it's possible to achieve your biggest life-changing goals without the frustration, obsession, or negative self-talk that so many women subject themselves to every day. All you need are the right tools, the right mindset, and the faith to turn your dreams into reality. I'm here to guide you along the way. The truth is that you are so much more than a body, and I'm on a mission to help you change the way you think and act at a core beliefs level so you can transform your physical, mental, and spiritual health from the inside out. Are you ready to become fed and fearless in your pursuit of a healthy, meaningful life? Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, and I'm so excited for our episode today because I have with us one of my favorite people in the online health and fitness space in general, and she's just a really awesome person all around. And I know that you're going to love her if you don't already know her. I'm guessing that many of you do know her because so many of you actually have come from her audience and finding me through her amazing podcast. But if you don't know her, then I think this is going to be a really awesome introduction to her philosophy and to get to know her a little bit better. So today I have with me on the show, Steph Gaudreau. And Steph is someone who I've been friends with for, I guess it's been a couple of years now. It's almost always been virtually. I had the great opportunity to meet her in real life when I was in California in October for a business event, and we got to spend a couple hours together hanging out and just getting to know each other better in real life, which is always awesome. But Steph and I have been online friends for a while now. And Steph is a nutritional therapy practitioner and strength training expert who helps women around the world find a more nourishing approach to food and fitness. In her best-selling book, The Core Four, she details a 4-pillar approach to building health, embracing your body, and owning your power. Steph is trained in biology and human physiology and is a nutritional therapy practitioner, certified intuitive eating counselor, and USA weightlifting sports performance coach. She's an international speaker that has been featured in Outside, Mind Body Green, Self, and ESPN Radio. She lives in San Diego with the loves of her life, her Scottish husband Z, and her cat Ellie. When she's not lifting heavy stuff, you can find her tending to her garden, standing on the dining room table to get the perfect food photo shot, getting her butt kicked at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and reading about how to be a better human. So I was so glad to have her on the show. We definitely had a very in-depth conversation that we could have probably kept talking for hours, but I'm just really pumped to have her here with us and for you to get the opportunity to hear more from her about her and her philosophy. So without further ado, here is Steph. All right. Well, I am so excited to meet have one of my internet besties on the podcast with me today. This is someone who I've had a lot of interaction with over the last, I want to say like 3 to 4 years at this point, just both being in the same field and then also being involved in some different programs together. And we've tried to make it work to see each other in real life, but we have not made it happen yet. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I'm super excited to welcome Steph Gaudreau to the podcast today. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited because it has been forever and we are going to make it happen. We are.
Yes. We're putting it out into the universe. It has to happen now. So, and I'm pretty confident that most of my listeners know who you are, but just in case anybody doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're currently up to in the world of women's health and empowerment.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like I wear a million hats, much like yourself. And it sort of depends on what day of the week it is and what time of the day, what hat you're wearing. But I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and a strength coach. So those are the sort of two main areas that I work in professionally, although I, do just what you do as well, which is talking about mindset and our beliefs and how that informs the choices and actions that we take in our lives. I have a podcast. I have a couple of books. I used to be a high school science teacher. I mean, I have this kind of really odd background, but yet here I am and teaching in this other capacity. And the why behind what I do is I really want to help women trust themselves when it comes to their bodies and food and movement. And instead of prescribing or dictating what people do is helping them come to that realization for themselves. So that's kind of what I do every day, and it looks different, but I'm just really excited to really talk to women, to drill down a little bit more into the heart of what's holding them back. And yeah, it's really interesting how our own journeys oftentimes parallel the things that we're talking about, or we're just a few steps ahead. So I feel like it's a constant evolution, and the ways in which we're showing up in the world, helping people do this work and really helping women is variable, and it evolves and changes much like we do. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell.
Yes. Well, very tiny little nutshell. I know you do a lot of stuff in general, and you're just doing so much to help women with that empowerment of them learning how to listen to their own bodies and to learn how to make decisions that are aligned with their values, which is exactly what I do. And I think that's why we get along so well, and our work complements each other. And I'm always telling people about the Core 4 book, because I'm like, hey, that's like a great place to start as far as just, foundational health habits. And one thing that we were kind of talking about before we got on the call, and we'll definitely go into this more, is the interesting fact of you just called yourself a teacher a few minutes ago. And I would consider you more of a coach, because I feel like teaching, and I'm not a teacher, my husband's a teacher, so I could be wrong. But when I think of teaching, I think of like you're presenting information and here's the lesson and do your homework kind of thing, versus I feel like a lot of what you do is actually asking questions. That's more of a coach, where you're getting people to think about stuff differently and asking questions that kind of get down to why are you even asking about this, or what's the question behind the question. So, because I lurk in your free Facebook group and I see the way you interact with your people, and I'm like, that's definitely more coaching than teaching. So would you consider yourself a coach?
Yeah, yes. And it's been an interesting thing for me to learn that skill set, because I do come from a background of teaching. I taught high school science for 12 years, and I was very steeped in that world. It's the first career that I had. I was 21 and I was a teacher. And I really love this differentiator in the world of teaching between the filling of an empty vessel, much like you said, with information, versus the lighting of a flame, the sparking of something inside of somebody. And you need both of those, at least in sort of education as we know it, right? There has to be some kind of spark, but there also is an exchange of information. So I do that's what I mean when I say teaching. But I will say the thing I've really had to learn with working with people in what I'm doing now is to be less of the person who wants to come in and fix everything. Because that's my nature, right? I'm a fixer. I sort of want people to come to their own healing in whatever way that looks like, and facilitate that. But I also know that I have that reflex in me that's like, let me just tell you what to do. But then, as you know, because you do similar work, that does two things. It robs that experience from that person. Even though it's painful sometimes, it's so hard to watch them go through it and struggle. But we know that the greatest transformations come from that, right? But at the same time, it also protects your energy, or protects my energy as the coach, right? Because we can't carry everybody's bags for them. Mm-hmm. Be exhausted. I mean, we're strong. Yeah, we lift weights, but if we carried everybody's emotional bags and all the things that they're dealing with in their life, instead of helping them figure it out, then we would be exhausted. So it is it's a way to set boundaries, and it is part of self-preservation. And I didn't learn about motivational interviewing until last year, and I am still pretty crappy at it, but I try now when I can, instead of swooping in with an answer, unless it's something really technical, is to ask a question back to the person who asked the question, which is probably really frustrating for them because they just want an answer. They're seeking that knowledge, but at the same time, yeah. So I guess it depends how you define it, but yeah, I do try to be that person who is walking alongside, right, and supportive, and think of taking a journey. Somebody can help you along the way, but they can't walk it for you. That's kind of how I see my role these days.
Well, and I don't know about you, but so much of my education about how to effectively coach people has been from being coached. And yes, there's like different, you can go to different certifications and get certified as a life coach or a health coach, or, there's lots of different options out there. But I think when you have that experience of being coached and you can see the difference between when someone's just telling you what to do versus them asking the right questions that help you come to the answer that is the right answer for you, it is very uncomfortable at first. And you're like, why won't you just tell me? Just tell me what to do. Like, stop asking me what I think. You're the expert. But I mean, obviously there's going to be some basics. And that's why I love the book that you have, because there's some actual basics that, like eating protein, that is something that most people benefit from. It's kind of a simple change that someone can do to feel better. But so much of what I see in my community, and I'm sure just observing your community and seeing the kind of conversations that y'all are having, it goes so much farther beyond just, do I have the right information? And it's funny because I wrote this list of questions and I'm like, I swear I'll go back to the list of questions that I sent you. But I just think it's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, just being coached by my own coaches and then getting more involved in the actual coaching process with my clients. Because I think a lot like you, when I first started, I had a lot of knowledge. I had a lot of like answers to give people. And that was like, I remember when I first started working with private clients, I would send them this list of like 30 different things that I suggested that they do, like to get their health back. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh no, that was so bad. And so it's one of these things where I've learned how to really reel back on the advice giving, which I'm the same as you. Like if somebody has a problem, I'm like, let me fix it. I can fix it for you. And really starting to learn how to ask those questions. So I love watching you interact with your audience just because I feel like the level of empathy and compassion that you have for people's struggles and the challenges that they're facing is like more than what I can drum up. I'm usually a little bit harsh with people. I'm like, no, we're not going to sit here. You're going to make some action steps and let's do it. So I just love seeing how much space that you hold for your community and the empathy and compassion that you have for them. It's very inspiring to me.
Be careful what you wish for, because it's a hard thing to manage with boundaries and energy. And then, the other piece to that is that there is a time and a place, and there are people who have not earned the right for me to hold space for them.
Yes.
It's a discernment. So I just want people that are listening to think, oh my gosh, I have to do this for everybody that comes across my path. It might just be the way we deliver that message and information is a little bit different in our delivery style, where, maybe you're a bit more direct. Sorry, there's my cat. You might be a bit more direct and I'm a bit more just, just express it in a different way. But not everybody gets the right, for me to hold space for them.
Well, and I think that's really important because I know we're going to have some people that listen to this show that are coaches in their own industry. So maybe they're a nutritionist, a fitness coach, maybe they do life coaching, whatever that angle that they're taking. And I think there's this I always talk to clients that are like, oh my gosh, I love what you do. I want to change careers. I'm like, let's make sure you really want to get into this because I know it looks glamorous to have an online business and be working with your ideal clients and all this fun stuff. And as Steph and I have both been learning over the last couple of years, there's a lot of hard stuff as well. And there's a lot of boundaries that need to be set. And it was funny. I was just interviewing a friend, Sarah Smith, who was saying, DM me and we'll talk about like what you need and I'll give you some advice. I was like, and because Sarah's a friend of mine, you better do that fast because we're not going to let her do that anymore because we need to create some boundaries. So I just think the whole practice of setting boundaries is so important, not only for people who are coaching, but I also think that we are being role models for our clients, because if we're just out there pouring everything out of ourselves, like giving to the point where we're exhausted and depleted, we're basically setting an expectation that anyone who's watching us sees us and is like, that's what I should be doing. And I should just be giving until I can't give anymore. And I do think that setting appropriate boundaries in all areas of our lives is a part of health. And it's a part that people like you and me who we want to help, we want to impact others' lives. Like it's a skill. It's like a discipline to get to a place where you're like, I'm going to reserve some of this energy for myself, for the people that have earned the right to be in my circle. Figuring out what part of the circle are they in, and at what point do you say, no, this is my space. So anyway, it's funny because Steph and I talk relatively often via an app called Voxer about business stuff. And y'all are probably listening like, what the heck are they talking about right now? But this is just my, with my podcast, I want it to be a show about more than just like nutrition and exercise and that kind of thing. And I think what I'm loving getting to talk to Steph about is how do we actually move forward in pursuing our purpose while protecting our health. So, and first, I would like to back up for a second because literally I could just like go on this vein forever. If people are not familiar with you, I think it's kind of interesting to think about your origin story, because I remember when I first ran across you, you were doing a blog called Stupid Easy Paleo. And I think it was in the last like 2 years that you did a rebrand to just the Steph Gaudreau personal brand.
So November of 2018, so about a year.
Oh, it's only a year? Gosh, it seems like it's been so much longer than that. You've just done so much under that new brand. It's like, it feels like it's been a lot longer. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what inspired that shift from, actually, there's two shifts I think we could talk about. One is the shift from Stupid Easy Paleo to you as the brand. And then there's also the shift that I've noticed in your online community where it used to be the Harder to Kill Club. And now it's the Core 4 Club. So you've been going under a lot of like metamorphoses in your business. And I would love to hear from you, like what inspired that and what drove that? Because I know there's a lot of work involved when you make those changes. And I'm assuming that there was some deep soul longing to make those changes. It wasn't just like, I'm bored.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually switching to my personal brand, which I did in November 2018, goes back to 2016 or so. So it took two full years or almost 3 years to really make that switch. And I just started to have these rumblings, this feeling that I was not aligned. There's something was out of alignment. And Stupid Easy Paleo started as essentially a virtual online recipe box almost 10 years ago. I mean, really 2009, I was blogging recipes on my personal blog. So 10 years. That's a long time. And somebody suggested, oh, you should start a food blog. So I did that in 2011. And that became Stupid Easy Paleo. And I knew nothing about blogging. And I was just really interested in sharing, what am I doing right now? I changed from a very sort of calorie restrictive, very low fat, scared of all foods, scared of gaining weight way of living my life, exercise as punishment for what I had eaten or earning my food. I went from a mentality very much like that to start the process of unhooking from all those things. And so I did. I found paleo. I started eating more real whole foods. I started including more fats in my diet. I mean, so many different things that changed the way I was exercising, the whole 9 yards. And I just wanted to share it with whoever. I mean, there was no master plan. It was just share what I'm doing and what I'm really liking right now. And I did that for several years. And the movement piece was always sort of part of what I was doing. But I really felt that the more I wanted to talk about other things related to things like lifestyle besides food, I felt so like I'd painted myself into this corner. And I ate strict paleo for probably the first 6 months, meaning very, very, very low carb, never ate rice. I mean, certainly no gluten, no dairy, just was really by the book. And so what started to happen was people would come across the website and they'd say, oh, a recipe about potatoes. I thought potatoes weren't paleo. And I ended up spending more time justifying the things that were on the website than I felt like I was actually just talking to the people who wanted the information that I was putting out. So I started to feel that there was a misalignment there. And so instead of, this is the ego part of my brain, instead of saying, okay, we're just going to change it all, because I had built, quote, air quotes, I had built this big following and lots of web traffic. And at the height of Stupid Easy Paleo, the website, we were getting almost 1 million page views a month. I mean, that's a lot of traffic for just a kind of a small website of a team of one. And the answer that I thought was the right answer was to just start a second website and run that at the same time. And
that's obviously the easier approach.
Not the easier approach in the long run, unless you're going to have a completely separate team running that other website. I mean, I just got to the point where, and I did that for almost a year. I ran 2 websites. I had 2 completely different social media accounts. I would write things and say, wait, where does this live? This is about nutrition, but it's not a recipe. Does it go on Steph Gaudreau? Does it go on Stupid Easy Paleo? What am I doing here? And I mean, I'm a child of divorced parents, and I ended up feeling like I was living in 2 households. Like where's this go? Where does that go? People were confused. They were wondering where they're going to find the information. And I thought if I was confused, they're going to be confused as well. So early 2017, I just decided to stop blogging on stephgaudreau.com and went back to stupideasypaleo.com and was working on that and just trying to shove that foot into a shoe that just didn't fit anymore. And I did that for a year. And then after that, I sort of woke up last January of 2018 and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm ready. Whatever. Rebrand it. I don't care. Who are we? We're going to lose people. Oh, well, what am I going to micromanage, when I knew that just as a sort of philosophically and energetically, it was not a fit for me. And of course, started to really see through the community that paleo and other sort of named real food diets, ways of eating, for a lot of the women that were in my community, I was noticing so much disordered eating. Lots and lots and lots and lots of disordered eating. And I saw it in myself as well. What began as a way of exploring a real food way of eating became, I can't eat this or I can't eat that. And it's like, well, really, why? Is it making me feel bad? I mean, am I getting test results that are showing me that maybe I should change what I'm eating? No. I mean, so there was one point where I got a watermelon in an CSA box, the community supported agriculture, and I gave it away because I was afraid to eat the carbs. I mean, so it just was the intention negative of, was the intention of this movement or this community bad? No, I don't think so at all. But nevertheless, the impact of that was being felt and seen, and I was noticing that. So I decided to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, really start learning more about a bio-individual way of approaching nutrition. Now I'm an intuitive eating counselor, and I'm really sort of looking for ways to bridge those 2 communities in the future. But ultimately, I don't think that most of what we're struggling with is a what to eat problem, at least with the people who have been in the community for long enough. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Most of the people coming to us have not been eating a standard American diet for years and years. Lots of them have been in this community or adjacent communities for many years, and they're still as confused about food as ever. And so it's not necessarily a what to eat problem. There's lots of other things going on. So with the rebrand, I felt like I had the latitude to start exploring these things a little bit more, and and talking about movement and talking about energy and energetics and talking about these other issues that we all run into, even if we're not professional coaches in mindset or psychologists or coaches still. And the people like us, we still deal with people and their beliefs and how their roadblocks to behavior change and those sorts of things. We have to have that as part of our skill set, and it's part of our human skill set as well. So that's really why I decided to do the rebrand. And it's something that I'm still feeling my way into, and I still don't feel like I have all the answers to, because I step back and I see, do we all just need to figure out the the right foods for us. I mean, it's a piece of it, but it's not the only thing. So what am I going to start offering for people? So that's really how the website rebrand went. But it was fraught with, I mean, technical stuff aside, lots of fears about if I change, what's the old community going to think of me? What are people going to say? And these are things that I went through when I left my teaching job. Same things. People are going to think I'm a quitter. People are going to assume things about me. People are going to think that I just gave up on them. People aren't going to understand why I'm changing. And I really tried to be transparent from day one about when I've really decided that the rebrand was going to happen. I started telling people immediately, this is what's coming. This is why it's coming. Get ready. And it took almost a whole year. And there were still people who were shocked and surprised. I guess, not everybody sees every post we put out there, but yeah, I think taking people along for that ride. And what I started to see were so many women in the community who were feeling much the same way, when it came to their approach, what they believed about food, how they use food or movement. I mean, why those relationships for one person can be completely fine and the other person could be doing exactly the same thing and it could be really disordered for them or really not serving them in their life and not moving them toward a purpose other than having a perfect body, which I know you and I share that sentiment. I mean, this is our vessel. This is the home that we get to inhabit while we're here. But also, it's not the most important thing about us. And yet we are right now sitting in the soup of a culture that values, we are okay, biological stuff aside and like mate seeking aside, our culture, our society values what people look like pretty much above everything else, especially women. And I think, we're really trying to get women to see, you're already so incredible as you are, no matter what you look like, but also the pressures that women are under, especially if they don't fit the norm, sort of the common thing that we see, if they're differently abled, if they are women of color, if they're not cisgendered, if they are in, traditionally non-female work fields. I mean, there's just so much that we go through for, women in larger bodies. I think that what we're all trying to have that conversation about, at least you and me and other people who are doing what we're doing, is to say, yes, and what else? Yeah, so you want to feel good in your body. It's rubbish to not feel good in your body. Aches and pains and gut problems and anxiety and depression and all of those things they really make the human experience quite a bit of suffering. But beyond that, why are we trying to look perfect? Why are we putting ourselves under so much pressure? Why are we in this hustle mentality, this hustle lifestyle? And sure, we work harder at sometimes than others, but it's like the 24/7 at all costs. And so I think that's, if we look at the bigger picture of what we're trying to do, it all sort of falls under that umbrella. That was a really long answer.
I would give you a mic drop, but my mic's on a boom, so I can't drop it for you. But yes to all of that. I have so many thoughts and I'm like, which one do I want to go with? Because there is such a bizarre place to be in for people like us where we have knowledge about practical strategies that can help someone improve their health, help someone feel better, like their digestive health, their hormones. I mean, I even think if somebody wants to lose weight because losing weight would improve their quality of life, there are some strategies that could be tested. But the problem that so many of my clients come with is that losing weight, as an example, is I need to lose weight so that I can love myself, so that I can be valuable to society, so that people treat me like a human, like the things that should never be part of the equation because I think losing weight can be very neutral if we can strip away the societal expectation and it's more, hey, do you feel good in your body? Would it feel better if you had less weight that you had to carry around? Would your joints be more comfortable? Would you be able to get up and down off the floor with your kids? Like things like that I think the desire to lose weight makes sense. But when we're thinking about societal demands and, you have to look a certain way, you have to wear a certain size clothes, you have to have a certain level of leanness, but make sure you have body fat in the right spots. That kind of thing is where most women, if not 99.9% of women, are approaching these kind of health, quote unquote, health goals from. And that's where I think so much of the damage comes into play, because they start doing things that are either harmful to their body or literally have no benefit. Like maybe it's neutral, but they're doing something that really actually isn't giving them any positive outcome. And they're doing it because they think, well, that's what you do when you're fit. I know you saw this happen on my Instagram page recently, where I was quoted on a podcast saying, like, if you're working out 6 days a week and you're not getting your period, I think you should ask yourself, why are you working out 6 days a week? And I got so much, like, first of all, so many people like, oh, I love this. Like, thank you for bringing this up. And then a couple of these like kind of angry strangers being like, well, I work out 6 days a week because it's for my mental health and I'm disciplined. And, I get up at 5:30 in the morning and like, I just make it happen. And I'm like, this is why people are so like afraid to do what's right for them, because there's random people or even their friends and family that are judging them for their choices. So I feel like you and I are both combating a lot of weird, disordered thinking in the health and fitness industry, and also trying to balance that with the desire to help people actually feel their best and not feel guilty for wanting to pursue health goals. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I don't know if that was a question or more of just like a can of worms I just opened.
Well, okay. It's super nuanced. And I love the quote, the opposite of a great truth is also true, because that just sums up life. I mean, somebody could look at an Instagram post and it's going to completely resonate with them in their heart. And they're going to think, this person understands me. And another person's going to read it and go, this is absolute trash. I hate this. I couldn't agree less. It doesn't apply to me in my life. And so I think we have the personal responsibility to be that. We have to have our own barometer or our own filter through which we pass information. And I get it. Again, opposite of a great truth is also true. We have most of us operate from a place of personal values or moral values or whatever, even in our businesses, right? We have those values that inform what we do. So we oftentimes, we're going to do things that are resonant with what our values are, and we're going to try the very best we can to convey that in a way that's helpful. However, the consumer, the person reading, also has that responsibility. And I hear sometimes people are like, well, like people will do anything that they read on social media. And I'm like, yes, but also, you know what I'm saying? We are absolving people sometimes of their own personal responsibility when it comes to applying the things that they're reading. And okay, there is a level of, do I trust what the person is saying? And even that gets tricky, because you could be, you're a registered dietitian. You could be a registered dietitian who's putting out really great information and doing her best to help people. You could also be somebody who's just not really good at their job, or not good. You know what I'm saying? So just because somebody's licensed or has education in a particular area does not guarantee their competence. So we have to develop critical thinking. And unfortunately, people my age, so the internet kind of came out when I was in high school, like 14. I remember getting on a computer on the internet for the first time. But nobody's teaching media literacy either. And I think that's a problem, because now we have this explosion of information. We have no idea how to sift it, filter it, decide at a glance what's trustworthy or not. So all of that being said, yes, I think personal autonomy is really important in deciding what you're going to do with your body. However, I think that I feel at least an obligation to not turn a blind eye to the things that I have now learned, because I know that 10 years ago, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. I thought I knew a lot about nutrition and how these things play out. And as I get older, I'm 40, the more I'm learning, and I'm a learner, but the more I immerse myself in this world, the more I'm learning that I don't know anything. And I'm constantly trying to build that. And so now that I've learned what I've learned about things like orthorexia, disordered eating disorders, can I turn a blind eye to that as a practitioner? I could, but it is not within my value system to do so. So I think what's really tricky is, yes, if you're like, hey, I want to lose X number of pounds as my client, I would say, well, number one, I don't do weight loss. I am not a weight loss nutritional therapist, right? That's not what I help people do. I help people get healthier. And if by that virtue, weight loss is a side effect, awesome. But also, again, here's this motivational interviewing. My question would be to ask you, if you have a specific amount of pounds you want to lose and it's like really, really stuck on that, where did that number come from?
Mm-hmm.
Who told you that number? How old were you when you attached to that number? Because what I see with a lot of women is it's how much I weighed when I was 14, or it's how much I weighed before I had my first child, right? Like, so when and where did that number come from? What do you think your life is going to be like when you reach that number? And I get it. A lot of people say, well, the scale is a neutral tool for me. And then they used to say it oftentimes in a dismissive way, like, so it should be neutral for everybody, or, I choose my choice. And I'm like, that's wonderful, but not everybody is at that point. And for some people, literally weighing themselves, it just can and should not happen because of their relationship with that, or their eating disorder, or their history, or whatever it is. And so I think that oftentimes we get into these places on social media where let's be realistic. We have a very short amount of time to make our point and make it succinctly. And it's not easy. Somebody had an issue with a post that I put up very recently, and they were like, well, it's missing all the nuance of the conversation. I'm like, right. Cause it's a freaking conversation.
There are like character limits that you have to follow.
Right. And how are you going to capture a whole podcast in a graphic, and so, yes, I acknowledge that some of this stuff is very, very tricky, but also I get a little bit mad because I see people, coaches, whoever, nutritionists, putting out really crappy information. And I'm like, who's going over there to attack them? I mean, I get really heated about it because I'm like, I'm over here saying, hey, caveat this, hey, nuance that. And people, it's like, it's not enough. And yet the people who are just very like black and white, like everybody should eat less than 1,200 calories if they're trying to be on a weight loss diet. Who's over there, questioning that? And I think questioning is fine. But I just think sometimes in this space, we want things to be very black and white. And that's really not where things exist. So yes, do I respect people's autonomy to do with whatever they're going to do with their body? Yeah, it's not my body. I don't have to live in it. You do. Also, as my duty as a coach, as a practitioner, is to ask you why and to help you get clear on why you're doing that thing. And my favorite question is it worth what it's going to cost you? Because everything has a cost. Monetary, time, energy, emotional energy, whatever it is, it's all going to have a cost. Have you assessed that cost? And this is not the same women that I see, and this is not a judgment, this is not meant to sound mean, but the same women that I see who are super stuck on those last 10 pounds, those last 15 pounds, are in straight sized bodies. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the way they look, and most of them are very lean to begin with, relatively speaking. And it's like they're so stuck on that last, there's an expectation of something in the life that's going to change if that weight is lost. And this obsession with looking perfect, and this obsession with looking super lean. And again, I'm like, is it going to worth what it's going to cost you to achieve that? And what's the feeling you're trying to get? What's the feeling that you're trying to generate from having this change? And I think oftentimes what we see underneath it is insecurity. And by the way, this comes from myself, somebody who is obsessed with like a certain weight and being this as small as possible. So I get it. It's, a worthiness that we expect. It's an attention that we think we're going to get. It's a validation that we think we're going to have. It's a worthiness that we're going to finally feel. And I think that that's worth questioning. And so, yeah, you get to do with your body what you're going to do with your body, but also don't expect me to prescribe you a weight loss diet, because it's not what I do. And I respect that difference, but I'm going to send you somewhere else because it does not align with my value system or the things that I know are important and the things I have learned that I can now not unlearn. Because I hear every day from women who are like, well, it started off innocently enough. I went on a macro program and it spiraled into an eating disorder or disordered eating. And I believe these women. I believe them when they're telling me that I didn't have a problem with food before. I achieved a physical look that was usually quite lean. And then I gained weight back, which oftentimes happens when we start eating normally again. And it becomes, right, there's an issue of like, there's a control thing going on there. And so I think it can be a yes and situation. Yes, I respect your desire to do this, but no, it's not what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And don't make me change to suit you, right? If you don't like it, there's lots of accounts that you can follow. There's lots of people that are going to help you get that before and after picture that's going to help you feel validated. I'm just not that person.
Yeah. And I think the weight loss question is I even feel like, and definitely getting some chili peppers on this episode as far as the, passion is concerned. And I'm the kind of person when I'm working with a client that wants to lose weight, like we're first going after what is the reason for wanting to lose weight and how is that going to impact your life? Just like what you said. And I've had potential clients that wanted to work with me say, oh, I have this like inch of belly fat that I pinch and I don't want it there anymore. And in my mind, I'm like, that's not what I do. Like, I'm not helping you look like stage ready for a competition. But on the other hand, if I have a client who's, 250 pounds and she wants to go hiking with her family on vacation and she physically is like, I can't move up the mountain with them because I'm carrying weight that is making it really hard for me. I would love to lose weight so I can do these fun activities on vacation with my family. I mean, it's not a judgment of like, that's a good reason, that's a bad reason. But for me, I feel like, hey, we can work with that in a way that's actually supporting your health. And it's not doing extreme dieting activities to be able to get to that place. Cause I believe that is something that can be achieved with the right changes, the right, action steps. And so I think even the term weight loss is so like, there's just so many different things that weight loss means. Weight loss could mean I lose 50 pounds and I get down to 200 and I feel great. I can move now and I'm good. I'm happy. This is awesome. Or you have someone who's like, I have that last 5 pounds and I want to look good in a bikini. Is that actually affecting their life in reality? Or is it just a belief that they have that that'll make their life better? And so I think it can get really complicated because, for me, I feel like I kind of bounce between agreeing with the intuitive eating, health at every size philosophy, and then also seeing that, if somebody says, oh, if a dietitian or a nutritionist agrees to help you lose weight, like that's unethical. I feel like when I see that kind of thing, that it's kind of a sweeping generalization of like, what does it mean to help someone lose weight? So, and this, I think this is an area where everybody's going to have to kind of decide what their opinion is about it because there is so much of a diversity of like, what's right, what's wrong. But just as I get frustrated with people who say, oh, starvation mode is total BS. And like, if you think that under eating is causing you to gain weight, you're stupid. Like I've seen that kind of thing. And then I've seen people say, if a person ever talks to you about macros, like that's disordered, you should never do that. And I just had today, someone on my Instagram mentioned that tracking her food was what helped her make sure she was eating enough and helped resolve her health issues. And so, the tracking of food, that's technically a neutral tool. The tracking is not what creates the disorder. It's what's the goal with the tracking and what's the mindset you have around tracking and what's the purpose? Because if the purpose is, oh, I can't hit, like if I go above 1,800 or 1,500 calories, I screwed up for the day and I'm going to like go run 5 miles to burn it off. That's a totally different way of using that tool versus saying, oh, I know I need 2,300 calories because I'm dealing with some amenorrhea and I want to get my calories up and I had 2,000 today. Let me go make sure I just eat some extra food, even though I'm not hungry right now. So I think those kind of conversations are so hard to have on social media in like little, like even this podcast, maybe we could talk about this for probably 5 hours and we wouldn't necessarily come to like some very clear practice. So that's where I feel like people really need, first of all, to learn the skill of like filtering information through the lens of like, how does this apply to me or not apply to me? And then also getting help from someone that they trust that can help them see these things objectively, can ask the right questions, and can really like change the way that they're thinking about the question in the first place. Because so many times in our communities, it's not a lack of information. It's a lack of understanding. How does this information apply to me? And how does this affect my life to work towards the goal that I think I should be pursuing?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things come up as you're talking. Yes, like things like tracking can be tools and even in the short term can be incredibly enlightening. especially when people are under eating, which we see so often in this community, whether it's purposeful or it's accidental under eating for different reasons. So I think, from a practitioner point of view, we have to do our due diligence to make sure somebody is not heavily on the spectrum of disordered eating already before we dive into those things. And that's a way I think that we can use those assessments in a very ethical way, is to say like, hey, let's run you through this and see what your dieting history is like, or your, where you fall on the scale of orthorexia, your beliefs about food and things like that. And also there are, depending on the person, I think there's plenty of tools that we can use that do not involve long-term tracking. That is like a quantitative tracking. Building awareness is certainly super helpful, but there are tons of ways to build awareness without, saying we're going to track this and it has to be down to the gram, which I've personally seen, because I used to, I have had a couple stints of counting macros many years ago when I was doing weightlifting and I was trying to get into a specific weight class. So I know, like, I've gotten an email from the coach that was like, you were 2 grams over on your fats. And I'm just like, okay, I guess like you're doing your due diligence to let me know that I'm over, but like also calm down a little bit over there. So I've seen it. I have really seen it. And I think that ultimately, you gave that example of the client who wants to be able to go on this big hike with their family. I think that's a really incredible why. Also, I think that ultimately what we're both talking about and what we can look at is the behaviors that we want to get people to be consistent with that are going to move them in that direction, right? So that it's not just about the number on the scale, because it's about how they feel. Mm-hmm. And so really getting people to clue into like, how are you feeling? Do you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? Are you stronger in the gym? If you're doing some weightlifting, or you could walk further than you could before. I think that really getting people to be clued in to those process-oriented things that they're doing, right? Those behaviors, things that we want them to be consistent with. You're getting your greens, you're making sure you're getting enough protein, you're getting adequate hydration. I mean, those are all incredibly important things if somebody's choosing to work on their health, no matter what size or weight they're at. Because you gave that example before of somebody who wants to get off the floor. And I'm like, look, I know plenty of people who are at a quote normal weight or even underweight who can't do that. Mm. So sometimes, fitness, the ability to do a task isn't always correlated to being in a smaller body. And so I think it's just being willing to have those conversations and really think about the client or think about the person that we're working with and, what is their history? What is going to work for them? If the scale has been triggering for them before, like, let's focus on the behaviors that are going to make them feel better and improve their health. And maybe we do blood work if that's something that you could do with your clients, or maybe we're just looking at subjective sort of how they're feeling in different ways. And we're using that as information. I think ultimately that's doing people a bit of a better service at the end of the day. And, looking at the ways in which we're helping them achieve that thing that they think, because oftentimes people don't have the language also to describe what they really want. Mm-hmm. They're thinking, okay, well, this 15 pounds of weight loss is going to help me just be happier. And in reality, when we look at it, it's like, oh, okay, your blood sugar is kind of dysregulated. You're probably not feeling very good. You're not sleeping, or you're full of aches and pains, or your gut is distended, or, all of these things that we know can really affect how a person feels. If we can start to give them the language or expand their beliefs and their own like way of looking at their situation and saying, okay, I get that. I hear that that's what you want, but like, let's think about all these other things too. Because what tends to happen, and I know that you've probably experienced this, is somebody will have so many things that improve. And because the scale barely moved, they're like, oh, I was a failure. I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
So it's then we get back into, the beliefs around that stuff. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's funny that you say that, because one of the first things I have my clients do in my Fed and Fearless coaching program is to write a list of 10 markers of health, both physical, mental, spiritual, like whatever health means to them that has nothing to do with their weight. Because again, even though my belief is that weight loss can be appropriate for certain people, depending on the context, having the number on the scale be the one thing that you're using to track progress in your habits or in your health, I would say I'm pretty confident in saying 100% of the time that's not appropriate to use weight as being the only sign that things are correct or appropriate for you. And it's exactly what you said. People get into this mindset of, oh, I feel great and my hormones are like super, like my period's regular and my gut feels awesome, but I gained 5 pounds and now I feel like shit about myself. Excuse my language. But it's one of these things where it's like, they're ignoring all the other benefits because the scale didn't move in the direction. And I've even had people say, well, I didn't lose any weight, so it wasn't really successful. And it's like, if you're putting all of your eggs in that, did this number on the scale change basket, then it's like, you're going to be pretty disappointed with 99% of the stuff that you do for your health. So that's why for me, I'm like, listen, I'm not going to tell you that if you have a really strong reason why losing weight is part of your goals, I'm not going to tell you that I can't help you with that, or that we shouldn't focus on it, or we shouldn't make some changes, that evidence-based like adjustments to your diet and exercise routine that could be useful. But we're not going to do it at the expense of your health. And when I work with private clients, I always go through this process of setting our top 3 goals for our time working together. Like I'll just say, what do you want to accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months? Let's get super specific and talk about it. And when they bring up things, like I have a client who will say, and this is not a person, this is just like as an example, they'll say, well, I want to get a regular period and I want to lose 20 pounds. And I'll tell them, I'm like, okay, well, I just want to let you know that these 2 goals are in conflict with each other. The things that I'm going to do to help you get your period regular is not what I'm going to do to help you lose 20 pounds. So we can't put both of these goals on your list because either neither of them are going to happen, or you're going to get problems in one trying to reach the other. And luckily, the kind of people I attract, thank goodness, recognize that, oh, all of that said, okay, well, let's leave the weight loss on the back burner. Let's just focus on my hormone health, or let's just focus on my gut health. And so that's how I approach it, because I feel like I don't want to invalidate someone's desire to lose weight and make it sound like you're not allowed to want that, or there's no reason that would ever be beneficial to your life. But let's get really clear about, like you said, the cost. If the cost is that your gut issues are going to get worse, your hormone issues are going to get worse, your fatigue is going to get worse, all these things that you know are affecting your quality of life are going to get worse if you try to lose weight right now, is that worth it to you? And like I said, because my people are awesome, 100% of the time they're like, no, that's not worth it. And then it kind of like lets them release that as a goal, which I think is super therapeutic, to just be like, okay, it's all right for me to not worry about that right now because I'm focusing on what really matters to me. And then, like you said, 9 times out of 10, they get those health goals reached and they don't even care about losing weight. And then the 1 time out of 10 where they're like, okay, I feel awesome, and now I'm ready to try doing some stuff to help me lose weight. Maybe I'm going to increase my exercise. Maybe I'm going to eat more protein and cut down on like sugar, or like whatever it is. They're coming at it from a place of like, okay, I already feel awesome. And if this doesn't happen, it's okay. And it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change how I think about myself. I just want to see if this is something that I can accomplish. So I think you and I have probably mostly overlapping opinions about that kind of stuff. And I think for me, it's always trying to walk that line of like recognizing that for most people, weight loss is not something that they should be focusing on if it comes to like what's going to really maximally impact their life. And then the very occasional time where it is something that can help them, let's make sure that the way they're doing it isn't by following these like crash dieting, over exercising kind of habits that create the health problems in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like you said, I know that talking to somebody like you, that's not what you're going to do to somebody, is say, okay, we're going to, eat 900 calories a day and
per meal. Let's do it.
3 hours of cardio. But yet that stuff's still out there. And
oh yeah.
That's the tricky part, right? Is that every time I think, gosh, this stuff could not still exist, I see stuff and I'm like, why are we doing this to people? Because it doesn't, that kind of restriction and overexercise does not last. And then that creates a whole host of other problems. But
oh yeah. Yeah. Like you said, sometimes I was just talking about this I had so many podcast interviews this week, so I apologize. I don't remember who this was, but if you go back a couple episodes, I was talking about how I was at a gym recently, just while I was on a trip to just get some exercise in while I was out of town. And I was following one of the videos that was part of the routine. And the guy was like, we're going to burn 500 calories in 10 minutes here. And we're going to, yeah. And I was like, literally, that's not even possible. Like, is nobody fact checking these videos before they get like shared with the world? So it's one of these things where when you're in a space of like, my coach at my gym is like, we don't always 100% agree with everything the other person says, but I never feel like he's saying like total nonsense, because I wouldn't be there anymore if that was the case. And sometimes I forget that people are hearing this stuff. Like, this is like a video that's being played in hundreds of places around the country. And I'm sure most of the people are like, yeah, I'm going to burn 500 calories. Like, what is that teaching somebody? One, that you can burn 500 calories in 10 minutes of exercise. And two, that the amount of calories you burn is the most important thing for the workout that you're doing. So it's just shocking, honestly. And I don't know if it'll ever go away, but I know you and I are doing everything we can to help bring people to the light. Now, I have one more question that I promised you that I would ask, because I think this is really important to have a conversation about. You have a free online Facebook community that has thousands of people in it in this point. I don't actually remember the last like number that I've seen, but I know it's over 10,000 at this point. 15,000 people in this free group, which is amazing. And I also know that you get to interact a lot with them, even though there are so many, at least currently, maybe not in the future, but currently I know you're interacting a lot. And one thing that I've seen in my community occasionally, and I know that you see in your community, is people who are relying on these free Facebook groups to solve really complex and challenging problems. And when the opportunity is presented to them to get help, whether that's from one of us or from a therapist or from a doctor or something like that, a lot of times the reason why they're not getting the help that they need is they say that they can't afford it. So I want to talk to you about that, because I know both of us have that in our communities to some extent, where people are telling themselves that they can't afford help, but then they're spending hours of their time in the free Facebook groups digging for answers, asking questions, and getting, I know you're giving good information, but you can't necessarily prevent 15,000 people from sharing their opinion about something if somebody asks a question. So in your experience, what do you see the value of getting paid help when it comes to reaching health goals and really, really transforming the way that you think and believe when it comes to things like food, fitness, lifestyle, self-image, all of that good stuff?
Well, I think there's still a prevailing belief that if you hire somebody, whether it's a coach, practitioner, whoever it is, to help you with something, you're weak and you should have been able to figure it out yourself. And we live in that's the culture we live in, right? We are like a country of like do-it-yourselfers. And I don't know, I've spent so much time and energy and money, and I know y'all just built a house, and you might like kind of commiserate on this, but I mean, I've painted more houses and moved more boxes and tiled floors. And I'm like, I'm never doing that stuff again. Like, I'm just going to pay a professional to do it. They're going to do it way better, way faster. And that's not my wheelhouse. So I think there's this attitude, at least in the Western world and in our country specifically, where it's like, you should be able to figure it out yourself. Like, we need to be independent. We need to never ask for help. And I think there's a layer of that. But I have worked with lots of coaches in different capacities. And, I think that there is sometimes a leap of faith that happens when you're working with a coach, because you can vet them and look at all their testimonials, but there's never maybe 100% guarantee that they're going to be able to help you. So I understand this. I understand the skepticism that can oftentimes cause people to not want to invest in themselves. But here's the thing: if there's a transformation that you really want in your life, I don't care if it's financial, it's health, it's building like the best capsule wardrobe you possibly want to build, like whatever it is that you want to achieve, you always have to think about the energetic and the financial exchange. So you may be able to do it yourself, but what is it going to cost you in time and probably confusion and having to really look through a bunch of free resources and figure out what's valuable and figure out what's going to help. And ultimately, at the end of the day, information's an important piece of this thing that you want to achieve, but it's really the action and application where you're going to see the most results. I can tell you, I can show you a picture of my book and say, these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about in this book. But unless and until you put it into practice, reading it's like great. Oh yeah, I increased my knowledge base, but you're not going to see a transformation, a change that you really want to see. So for some people, working with a coach gives them that layer of accountability. It provides also sometimes a layer of objectivity to your situation. Somebody gets to reflect back at you what you couldn't see and present solutions that maybe you didn't quite know were an option for you. So I think that's really the value of, and that's been for me the value of a coach. I mean, I know my sticking points with things. Will guarantee you that the things that I'm going to talk about with my coach next week are some of the things I continue to have as sticking points. And sometimes I need, and not that I have my sort of like inner circle of trusted people. You're one of them that I know is going to, I know you're going to give me feedback because you care about me and you're not going to say things that are perhaps hard to hear just to be mean. And I trust you, right? You're somebody I admire and I look up to for a whole bunch of different reasons. And so, yes, having those important people in our lives that know us is great, but also I think there's value to having somebody who doesn't have to be super emotionally invested in you and can really be that mirror to reflect things back. And so I get it. I really do. And this is the part of my personality and who I am. I understand that no, we are not all on a level playing field when it comes to financial resources, time resources, energetic resources, 100%. However, I also see the pain that people are in when they continue to be struggling over and over and over again with things that they have been trying to fix by themselves, where if they invested a small amount of money or even just a temporary solution with working with somebody, they would feel immensely better much sooner and be able to move on with their lives. And I've also seen people get pretty creative with being able to afford something, whether it's, you realize that, hey, actually I have HBO now and I'm not watching it right now. I should probably cancel that subscription, or you're really doing that inventory. And I do it in my business every so often where I think about, what am I spending money on? Memberships and subscriptions. I'm like, oh, I'm not using that particular thing in my business. Shut it down. Save myself $150 a month or whatever it is. And I think it's worth doing those assessments if and when we come up to the point where we say we can't afford something. And I also really love the litmus test that I heard recently when I was in New York at Marie Forleo's book launch, which was when she was talking about the difference between I can't do something and I won't do something. And oftentimes when we say we can't do something and using finances or other things as examples of why we can't, oftentimes comes down to I don't want to, or I won't. Mm-hmm. And that one word change, like can't versus won't, like we have to own that. We have to eat that responsibility of just saying, I won't do that. And I choose not to. Like it's hugely empowering, but it also moves the locus of control, or sort of like the locus of responsibility, back on yourself, instead of saying, well, there are all these other reasons why I can't do this right now. So, and then there comes the layer of the fact that, yeah, in my Facebook group, we're super strict about the fact that we aren't doctors. I'm not a doctor. I don't want your lab values being posted in the group for your own protection and for ours as professionals. There are doctors in the group. There are RDs. There are probably people who could interpret those results, but it's not okay. It's not okay in that, like, that's just the rule that we set, is like no lab results. We can't give you medical advice. If this is a group on finances, we probably couldn't give you specifically financial advice or investment advice or whatever it is. And there's just, people have a really hard time with that because they want that personal answer and somebody to tell them what to do. And it's not ethical. It's not for me as a nutritional therapist and as a strength coach, like I can't answer medical questions for you. That's outside my scope of practice. It's unethical. And I think that's unfortunately become a bit of a norm in social media these days where the access is there. People can ask questions. And I get it. You want answers. You're frustrated. I totally understand where you're coming from. But also, it's not safe or fair for you, for me, even to give you really specific nutrition advice when I know nothing about your situation. And oftentimes this happens where folks will disclose later on in a conversation that they are on a thyroid medication or an SSRI, or they have this medical issue or this health issue it's been long standing, but they don't disclose it right away. And I'm like, actually, that could really change a specific answer that you gave to somebody. And I don't know anything about you. So it's really tough. There's that access piece that makes it really easy these days. And also, I just want to caution people against, free advice is only going to get you so far. And not that I'm saying it's bad to want to take matters into your own hands. And sometimes that's the case. But it also really breaks my heart when I see people who are still struggling with disordered eating. They're still struggling with crippling anxiety. They're still struggling with all of these things. And they've been made to feel like, again, hiring a coach or a practitioner is taboo. It means they're weak. It is maybe embarrassing for them for various reasons. If they feel like a failure or whatnot. And I think that there has to come a point at which, and I don't know, I wish I had you've been dealing with this for this many years, it's time to hire somebody. I don't think there's any magical answer there that's going to be applicable for every situation. But if this thing that you're struggling with continues to plague you over and over again, and this has been going on for, this is not just a drop in the bucket, what are you going to do? And I know it's hard. I know you might need resources, but at some point, what is it worth to be free of this thing that you're struggling with or have this transformation that you've been unable to do yourself? And that's fine. Coaches need coaches. We all need someone in our lives, whether we're paying them or not, who can be that person. It just so happens that in the work that we do, it's a transactional relationship on some level because we do have a business. And this is probably going to up the chili pepper factor too, but women deserve to be paid for their business and their expertise and what they're doing in the world. And there's a layer of, sometimes you and I talk about the things that people say to us that we should be doing for them for free. I guarantee you, Laura, those same comments would not happen to a man. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't. Because there's this expectation that women are, we're nurturers, we're givers. We should be doing this stuff because we care, and we do care, but we also we're running a business, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paid duly for our own time that we've invested, right? Our education, our continuing education, the ways in which we can help people and the transformations that we can help people achieve. And I'm not saying to do it in a way that's like Machiavellian, like, oh, I'm going to really, scam all these people out of their money. And we're not those type of
I don't think you're doing that stuff. I have a feeling you're not.
I'm
you're
not
running a Ponzi scheme or something.
No, right. This is not a pyramid scheme. But I feel like sometimes there's this sort of expectation of that we should be giving all of our work to people without charging. And that's not sustainable in any way. You and I both give away a lot of things for free. That's wonderful. And I feel really lucky to be able to do that. I mean, if you go on both of our websites, you'll find you have so many incredible, insanely amazing articles, and really just full of information and really trustworthy and really fair and balanced. And your podcast and all the things that you do. And yet you do have that other level of hey, here, let me walk beside you and walk you through this. And it's not free. And I just wish that people would think about whether or not they go to work for free. And do the job that they do for free. And
well, if they do, they shouldn't be.
No, they shouldn't. And I mean, volunteer work aside, I just think that, yes, it's worth considering as practitioners or folks that are professionals or coaches. Do we have some options available for people to engage with our work for no cost? I think that's really important, aside from the cost of getting online, because that's how we do what we do. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great service to the world, but also if you want a change and you want it to happen faster and you want it to happen with support, sometimes that does require some kind of investment.
Well, and I always think even taking our own businesses out of the equation, if somebody's not willing to invest in something, it means that it's not important to them. For the most part, I mean, unless somebody's on food stamps, then they have some amount of money to invest in what they need or want as far as a transformation goes. And at the end of the day, the transformation is in the transaction, is what one of my business mentors always says. And most people, if they are not willing to spend money on fixing a problem, then the problem is not a big enough problem for them. Okay, so I know that we could probably talk about that forever, especially because you and I have had a lot of conversations privately about our own businesses and, trying to help people see the value of investing in themselves, investing in their transformation. We just wanted to talk about that because we just don't want people to miss out on the transformation that's available to them because they're spending hours and hours and hours in free groups trying to piece together what they're trying to learn, and they just don't see the value in investing in themselves. So hopefully you guys heard that with love, and we're not wanting to make you feel bad about yourself or anything like that. We just really want you to know, Steph and I invest in our own coaches. We've seen transformation in our own lives from getting support from great coaches, and we want that experience for you, whether that's with one of us or whether that's with some other awesome coach. So Steph, I have 2 more questions for you. The first is, what is your big vision for the work that you're doing and the impact you hope to have on the world?
Okay. I'm going to try to make this concise. Not my
no pressure. 20 minutes later.
Yeah. I think if I could sum it up, it would be helping people find, especially women, because I'm a woman. I identify as a woman, and that's just who I really resonate with in the world. I think these concepts are highly universal, but this is just who I speak to and how I see it. But the thing that I'm really trying to make an impact on is that we will raise women who know their worth, take up space, and do all that without the pressure of restrictive diets, exercise as punishment, hating ourselves because of what the scale says. And I think what it really comes down to is helping women create a deeper sense of trust with themselves, especially around food and exercise, because for many, many, many of us, we've stopped trusting ourselves with those things. We've been told we can't trust ourselves with those things. And so it becomes a very guarded situation. And I know a lot of the research around, I'm not a body image specialist or expert, but I'm a woman who struggled with body image for a good portion of my life. And I think what's really telling is when you look at the research on this stuff, there's a lot of research on girls, teens, young adult women, yet there's some really interesting stuff about women in older life or older age. I'm talking 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond, who still have really low body image and really low satisfaction of how they look. And I'm just like, that breaks my heart, Laura, that, and again, I think we've hit this point several times in this show, but yeah, we want people to feel good in their bodies so that they can do the things they want to do, but also to be in that space of in later life, have your biggest regrets being that your body isn't perfect or that it doesn't look a certain way. I just think, oh my gosh, what an absolute heartbreak. It's a shame. It's a shame that women, especially in older age, have so much wisdom and so many gifts to share and so much leadership that they could potentially step into. And part of it is our society doesn't value that stuff. We don't, older women especially are invisible. All that stuff aside, I hope to make some kind of impact on that, where perhaps the women I'm working with now will write a different story for themselves and be able to look back at their life and not regret, that they don't fit into a certain size or whatever that might be.
I love it. And it's something that is super important to me in the work that I'm doing as well. So I'm so glad that there's multiple of us, more than just, we're not alone in our commitment to helping women see themselves as who they are and not who they wish that they were or who they think that they should be. And, I think some women as they get older, they kind of say, you know what, screw this. I don't want to be obsessive about this anymore, which is great if you come to that conclusion on your own. But sometimes it takes other women going first and other women showing you what life could look like if you weren't so hyper-focused on that. So I love that that's your mission. And especially for women as they age, because I totally agree with you that there is so much wisdom. There's so much just awesome stuff that younger women like myself, like women who are even younger than me, can learn from these older women who have been through so much. And if they are so distracted by trying to look younger or be fitter or be more beautiful, or they think, oh, nobody cares about me because I'm old and, older women are not respected, then we're losing a huge opportunity to, speak into younger women's lives and hopefully cut a lot of this stuff off from the get-go, as opposed to just waiting until you're 70 to say, I'm not going to live like this anymore. So I love that. Okay. So my final question for you is one that I did not prepare you for. I'm giving it back to you because you did this to me one time and I was like, I like that idea and it kind of sucked. So I'm going to do it to you. The question is, what do you believe makes a person more than a body?
Can we separate ourselves? And this is, I guess, I'm thinking about this as I interviewed a guy for my podcast that's coming out pretty soon, Tim Desmond. He talks a lot about Zen Buddhism and he has studied Zen Buddhism for a really long time. And he sort of, talks about this idea of non-attachment. And I am not an expert in explaining this, but I think we could, in lay person's terms, summarize it down to mean something like, or to say something like, you are not your body. Your body is part of you, but you are not your body. And I think that is maybe the way I would sort of explain it, insofar as the body is the thing that carries us around, but at our core, at our soul level, at our spirit level, at the level of our mentality, our emotions, we carry those things in this physical vessel. And this physical vessel can change and those other things can change as well. But at the essence of who we are really has nothing to do with the physical body. The essence of who we are and our innate goodness and our innate worth. Truly, and I know our society makes it all about the body first, but if you really stop to think about it, our worth transcends that vessel. Our worth transcends the work, even the work that we're able to do, how productive we are or how successful we are. And yet again, our society is very tied to that meritocracy, that, looking a certain way. Are we achieving? Are we, good cogs in the wheel? And are we productive? And I think that sometimes that gets us into trouble because for women, especially, feeling that pressure to do all the things and be all the things and be perfect looking. And that squashes that spirit, that essence of who we are. And it takes our attention away from the fact that we are good, we are worthy, we are incredible and wonderful, regardless of those other things. And seeking validation and seeking happiness in those external things oftentimes, reinforces the fact that we don't feel those things. We don't feel good about ourselves. We don't feel happy. It's like, why can't we just feel this way? And it's like, we already are that way. And I know that's kind of like an airy answer, but I really feel like the more we can tap into those things, we come back to that. And there's that analogy of the ocean, right? The ocean, the waves are very tumultuous and very stormy and very scary. But yet, if we dive really deep, the waters can be quite still. And how often can we come back to that? And it's hard. This stuff is not easy, but I think the more we can shift that direction, or at least keep that stuff in mind, the better off we're going to be. I think the easier it is to handle the tricky things that come our way.
Well, I love that answer. And I knew you'd have an awesome response to that question. And I 100% agree. I think we need to always question when we say, I can't be happy or I can't be successful until some external event happens, is really giving away our power to control how we feel and to decide how we're going to operate in the world and decide how we're going to interpret the world. And I think even just as a business owner, something that I've learned in the last couple of years has been that who I'm being is really what's driving my actions, which is driving the results in the world, as opposed to there being this like, well, once I make enough money or once I lose enough weight or, once this external thing happens, then I'll be happy, then I'll be confident. So I'm the same way as you. I want to kind of flip the script and let women take back the power in their own lives to be joyful, to have meaning and purpose, and to know their worth regardless of what's happening on the outside. So I love that answer, and could definitely continue this conversation for a long time, but we will just need to have Steph back on the show. But like I said, if there's like 3 people listening that don't know who you are or where to find you, where would be the best way to get more Steph in our lives?
The quickest way is to go to my website, which is stephgaudreau.com. And there you can find links to the podcast, to all my social media, my online community on Facebook. And yeah, I think that's just the central clearinghouse, but my podcast is called Harder to Kill Radio. I just would welcome people to come over if they feel like this resonated with them in any way, and they want to feel like part of the conversation.
Well, we'll link to all that, and I'll also make sure to share a link to your free community, since a lot of the conversation is happening over there, and I don't want anyone to miss that. So thank you so much, Steph. It was so awesome to chat with you. And like I said, we'll definitely have you on again because you have so much wisdom and insight to share. And I just really enjoy talking to you. So selfishly, I will love to have you on again. But thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everyone. Hey everybody, Laura Schoenfeld here again. I have a super special announcement for you that's very time sensitive, so listen up. Today is the first day that the Fed and Fearless program is open in 2020. And I would love to invite you to enroll if you think that 2020 needs to be the year that you finally get physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy. So does this sound like you? You want to live a normal life where you can eat out with your friends, enjoy your workouts, and experience great health, but you don't know how to get to a place where your health habits just feel easy. You're sick of living in a constant state of fear and anxiety over making the right decisions around eating and exercise, and you're never satisfied with the body that you have today. You're tired of burning yourself out on restrictive diets, exercise that exhausts you, and the endless Google searching for what might solve your health concerns. And you're finally over hating your body and using food and fitness as punishment, or skipping out on social activities out of fear that you'll screw up your strict diet or exercise plan. Because you know there's more to life than the never-ending search for the perfect diet and lifestyle plan to finally make your body acceptable. Are you ready to ditch the obsession and frustration around your health, let go of perfectionism around your body, and learn how to approach your health from a spiritually healthy perspective? If so, then Fed and Fearless is the fastest way to make this happen. Fed and Fearless is the result of over 6 years of working with women just like you overcome their biggest physical, mental, and spiritual health challenges. And it's from over 10 years of my own personal experience working through this exact process. It's my signature step-by-step program that helps health-conscious Christian women eat healthy food, train in an effective way, and care for the health of their body without letting their health goals overtake their life and steal their joy. The Fed and Fearless program is for high-achieving, faith-driven women who want to discover their best diet and lifestyle to reach their health goals so they can pursue their bigger purpose and make a meaningful impact in the world. It is the only program on the market that combines evidence-based functional medicine, nutrition, and fitness approaches with a strong Christian faith and mindset foundation. Imagine what it would be like to have total clarity around your own ideal diet and fitness plan, to have the tools and knowledge you need to support your body in the way that's best for you, to truly believe that you're doing the best for your body, even if the best means enjoying your dang life, to stop falling for every new crazy diet, over-the-top training plan, or quote-unquote magic supplement that gets thrown your way, to never again feel disgusted or disappointed when you look in the mirror or put on your jeans, to be able to eat out with your friends or your partner without worrying about what the heck you're gonna eat, to not have your self-worth be completely dictated by the number on the scale, to know deep down that you're enough just as you are and that you never have to earn your place in the world, to free up mental space to pursue a more meaningful, purposeful life, to be part of a tribe of like-minded Christian women who are supporting you every step of the way, and to use God-breathed truth to rediscover who you are and be the woman that you are created to be. All of this and more is possible when you join Fed and Fearless. It's a 12-week program that includes detailed video trainings on each of the 5 steps of the Fed and Fearless journey, 12 weekly Q&A and coaching sessions with me to get your questions answered, lifetime access to our private Facebook community where you'll get support, encouragement, and new friends, helpful handouts, guides, and journaling prompts to put your learning into action and practice your new skills, assessments to track your progress and guide your next steps, and a bonus ticket to attend my Fed and Fearless live event. All right, so I've talked enough about it. Head over to the enrollment page to check it out and join me inside the program. You can go to fedandfearless.com/join to enroll, and the cart closes Thursday, January 16th. So you only have a couple days to join, and after the 16th, the doors to the program are closed for another several months. I actually don't have another date on the calendar for when this program is going to be opened again. So if you want to make 2020 your healthiest and most vibrant year yet, then I encourage you to check out Fed and Fearless, and we'd love to have you in the program. Go to fedandfearless.com/join to enroll, and I look forward to seeing you in the program.